Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall, and on the other end, as always, is Pascal Floor. In the vest. Yet, how is the weather in
always
Germany
in the vest?
Is it potatoes?
No, it's not potato time. Potato time is always it's always in the evening. That makes me hot as fuck, and not in the sense of like, sexual tension, but more so, just like I'm boiling. I'm becoming that potato that sits in the boiling water. That's me.
Did I have potato yesterday? I think I did. No, it was the day before. I had potato.
Potatoes
we made
the
it
best.
Like a hash brown type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had hash browns before?
No.
They're really delicious. This was not like deep fried proper hash browns. This was like semi-healthy, just grating potatoes and then frying them basically in like one
I'm not the biggest fan of fried things. Never been.
This is one of those things where I'm like, pastry, fried foods, I try and tell myself, or at least I'd always told myself, they're not things I'm a fan of. And then when I eat them, I'm like, okay, holy shit, that's good. But there's a reason I've told myself I don't like these. Or sometimes if it's too far, it's too fried or too pastry-like. I'm not big on it. But some things I'm like, oh, actually, that's better than I remember.
I have it the other way around with summer rolls. Every single time I'm ordering like summer rolls from a Vietnamese shop, I'm just like, they look so delicious and they look so amazing. And every single time I'm actually ordering them, I'm so disappointed because they taste like shit. The only
what
good
are
thing
summer rolls?
Summer rolls, you don't know that. Or maybe it got a different name on English. Like, how should I put it? Let me just Google it real quickly.
Not
summer
like
rolls.
Dumplings or
no.
Gyoza.
It's kind of like with that transparent.
Sounds
wrap.
like a gyoza.
Gyoza,
yeah, maybe.
Summer rolls
from
English.
That's like Wagamama do gyoza. They're pretty good though, so I don't know. Maybe
Could
they're
be
not.
so. Vietnamese summer rolls I can only find here, but Gui Xiong. Yeah, but anyway, what I want to say is the dipping sauce is the only good thing, and sometimes they even mess it up with a peanut sauce. It's amazing, right? But yeah, because they look so tasty, to be honest, and every single time I see them, I think like, looks amazing. And I have some, and I'm hugely, massively disappointed by the taste of those. So the other way around with fried food for you.
Well, some of it, but like if I haven't had something like cheesecake, for example, I always tell myself, oh, it's not that delicious, it's not that great, and then, I mean, it depending if you have a good or bad cheesecake, because I guess that can happen. But
are you frying your cheesecake, or
no? It's just one of those like foods that are very calorically dense, I guess. Where I'd always tell myself, oh, that's not something that I'm a fan of, and I do it from like a habitual trying to stay lean, that sort of angle, and then I have it, and I'm like, okay, that's just like, that's really good.
It's crazy because I'm really not the biggest fan of like snacks and candy. Something like normal, it's a different word in British English, but chips, like what is it, crackers, crisps, exactly. Really not the biggest fan of those. I can think of so many other better things to eat than these kind of things, but I also don't know whether this is just like a little bit of self manipulation over the years of like like convincing myself that it's not good food. And then over the years, I'm just like, no, I don't like it. I hypnotized myself to not liking it.
That's what I think I did. Like, I'm the same with like chips. Actually, chips, I don't know. Yeah, you can have good ones, you can have bad ones. Like I'd always say I'm not that bothered, but if you gave me like a big, thick, like good chip, I'm like, yeah, that's good. Like, put me some vinegar on, get me some salt, then I'm sold. But if it's like one of those skinny cardboard chips that probably most places are, like Nando's chips, they're okay. But I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how I got onto that topic. I think it's I've been eating, I've dug out, because we're not going to the supermarket very much. So normally I'd have my like post-workout, or I've been eating them like as a pre-workout, just snack, like hot cross buns. But because I haven't been going to the supermarket, don't have fresh food on us regularly. So in the back of the cupboard were Pop-Tarts, and they're very similar like numbers in terms of macros to the hot cross buns. So I was like, these are best before 2016. Shall I try them still? They're definitely stale as hell, but
Yeah.
they're
I had
okay.
some like these as well sitting at home because one of my former athletes actually sent me a package like ages ago with just like a lot of sweets and candy, and also there have been a lot of Pop-Tarts in there, and I've never eaten them. And then at some point I was just like, shit, I have some calories left. How can I fill up those calories? And then I saw those Pop-Tarts. They were despite already expired a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then I thought like, hey, fuck it, I'm just going to eat them. And yeah, the first time I actually had Pop-Tarts, I was massively disappointed there as well. And also then every single time afterwards, I'm just like, what's the hype around that? I don't know. Maybe because it was the symbol of flexible dieting, or if it fits your macros at some point, that people were just like massively hyping it for no reason, such as Halo tops, for example. Yeah. I don't know. I was just like, okay, Pop-Tarts are not good. I don't know who told you that it's good, but they aren't. Sorry,
I do like Pop-Tarts, but they aren't as good as what sometimes you're led to believe they're going to be. And some of them have crazy great flavors.
Yeah, and you could spend those calories so much better. Like, get a bowl of cereals. Man, it's so much better. There are so many better cereals out there that are just like so much more delicious and are still the same calorie intake then at the same time. I mean, you can portion your sizes there. Anyway.
Have you had Nutella, Pascal?
Yeah, hello. I'm German, buddy. So
is it German?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
It's from Nestle, but I think it's from Germany, but I'm not entirely certain. But I ate it a lot when I was younger. A lot with toast and plain Nutella. Or
that's dangerous.
On a is it called crepe on like
pancake crepe?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this with banana. Oh boy, I still remember that. I haven't had that for a very long time, but I still remember the taste of it. And I could imagine that this is something that I shouldn't try anymore because I'm not into sweets anymore. This should be a childhood memory and stay like that. It's the same as with certain movies and with certain TV shows. You have kind of that imagination of it, that it was awesome, that was the best shit in the world, right? But and you don't want to destroy that childhood memory. And if you were to watch a certain specific movie nowadays, right, you would just like destroy the childhood memory. And that's probably the same when it comes to this as well. It would just destroy it for me.
I think I have this with like Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I don't know if you ever played that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved it when it first came out on the PS2, and I was obsessed. And then I go back and try and play it, and I'm just like, what the hell is this Lego weird? Like, it ruined it a little bit.
Yeah. Some things should stay untouched, and you shouldn't dig them out of the memory box anymore. They should just stay there.
I was trying to think of a nice way of getting into. So how has your week been, Pascal? But I didn't have a nice
I mean, our weeks, I think they are just like so much the same on a weekly basis. Like right now, we can't really go out and do much else. And it's just like, I mean, you can listen back to the previous episodes and it's probably the same thing.
You had started your maths last episode though, hadn't you? But now, you hadn't. So now that's new.
Not yet.
Have you actually? Oh, yeah, still haven't started the maths.
No, because I'm still in a kind of contemplation period of like, okay, the summertime.
Sounds like you need a kick.
Moving houses, and it's like I need someone to tell me like, okay, Pascal, this is what you need to do. Like honestly, I need that. I know that I need that, and I can't be. So because I'm just overthinking things, I'm just too much in my own head, once again, where it's like, I can't make that rational decision. And I even followed your advice and actually putting it down on paper in
You
the
did
pros
a pro
and cons.
list. Yes.
And the pros even speak for a cutting phase. But I don't know how much I also manipulated myself there in wanting there to be more pros than cons. So I don't even know whether this is actually...
It sounds like you want to cut.
Yeah, kind of, but at the same time, there's also a part of me that doesn't want to cut, right? And that is probably the part, the fat kid in me that just enjoys eating a little bit more food at the moment.
I would say from the limited amount, from what I know, my subjective opinion from the outside in would be to mass, because I know what your long-term goal is, and you are saying you want to step on stage and make the most of the off-season now. And so I'm like, you're lean enough to gain, so why extend the cut any further? Get into that gaining phase again so that you can bring something new to stage. But you can always swindle that to be, actually, what if I get leaner and then I can gain for longer and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is the state I'm in right now, because it's like, okay, summertime is the easiest time for me to actually be in a caloric deficit. Also, I'm moving houses where it's a period of time where I will be so busy, and thus it will be even easier to be in a caloric deficit. Furthermore, I don't have access to the gym right now, so the gaining phase, how productive will it be, right? And I'm rationalizing things, and I'm basically building my own narrative, which is never a good thing. And this is where a coach then comes into play and be like, okay, no, this is what we're going to do. Do you really think? So basically what you just said to me right there. But right now, I think the discrepancy is just that you are not my coach, right? Where it's like, oh, thank you very much, Steve, for actually giving me your advice, and I really appreciate that. But I need the coach to be the coach that tells me, okay,
you need to tell yourself,
right? You know what I mean?
Ask Katie, make her make the decision. She'd be like, Max Pascal,
I already bothered her with that one a couple of times, and she was just saying like, I have no idea what to tell you. I can't help you. like honestly, that's what she said. And she likes me a little bit bigger and fatter. So
I will say this, maintaining is not the answer. So whatever you do, you've got to make a decision at some point.
I know.
Because it is.
I know.
That little bit of spinny wheelie.
I know, and I want to be bigger at the same time, right? But I also know that over the past years, I've always gained through the summertime. And always I said to myself, never gain again through the summertime, because it's just a pain in the ass with the heat. But yeah, everything, excuses over excuses, right? But I'm just bringing it up because I think it's very valuable for the people that are listening to see that when you're not having a coach by your side, that these things happen, even for people such as you and I, who are, coaches ourselves. It's not about the knowledge. It's not about the experience, right?
Maybe when I start getting fatter, you'll be convinced, which is happening not too long.
Yeah, hopefully.
When you see me stuffing my face again.
Yeah.
Although I'm eating quite a lot now.
Yeah? How much are you eating at the moment?
So I think I'm maintaining on around 3,400 calories.
Boy, how's that even possible? Man. And I'm still getting like 10,000 steps per day, and I'm trying to entertain 2 kids at home. How is that possible, mate?
You need to run around in circles with them.
Yeah.
Maybe you are.
Right. How many steps are you getting on right now with Ada and stuff?
My average for the week is 14,000 or 15.
Okay,
14 or 15.
Okay, that explains a lot. Probably I would also be at 3,400 calories when I'm stepping it up to 14,000 steps per day.
But you're getting your 10K.
Yeah.
My volume is also super low at the moment. But how much that will influence things, I don't know, because...
And I'm training twice daily.
Weirdly...
Still, I'm only eating like 2,700 calories. Man, it has been up at around 3,200 at some point, but this was also me then commuting with a bicycle each and every single day.
I will say this, though. I've got so much more energy outside of the gym that I have found myself like running around with Ada, playing with her, like much more than I would when I'm like gaining, because I'm just like, in a hypertrophy phase. I'm just like, no, I want to recover right now. go away.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm just like, yeah, I've got the energy, let's go. So
yeah. Same here. I mean, I can feel it also from my well-being, like the mood. I'm much less irritable. I'm just like getting up in the morning. I'm just like feeling good when I start the day and start the morning, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm once again a little bit happier in general. Even considering and even considering the circumstances. And when the entire thing broke out here, right, I was still in a caloric deficit, and I think that this definitely contributed to how I felt in that situation. And just like felt a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit down with everything. And I think that this mainly also had to do with me being in a cutting phase, and then also ending the thing that I set for myself, basically. So yeah, it's crazy what food can do to you. And that's also the reason why I'm also saying to every single one of my athletes, okay, we are not deciding in a cutting phase on whether we want to continue the cut, like after maybe a diet break or a prima phase, or whether we want to go into a gaining phase, because nothing is more compelling than eating more in that situation, right? So rather give it a little bit of time and make that decision while you are in a diet break, or deep into a diet break, or deep into a prima phase, so that your mind isn't kind of manipulated by the caloric deficit.
Yeah. Even part of me, the way I feel now, like I'm like even part of me is like, I could cut, like I know I could cut. It's the wrong answer completely, but the exciting thing is I know probably like after I'd finished and lost the 20 pounds, it took, I can't remember when I said it in an episode when I was like, it took to this point where I finally felt kind of free of most of the diet fatigue. I think it took the 6 weeks, like the deload at maintenance, 5 weeks of massing, or like it was actually maintenance in the end, basically just building up calories, and then 1 week after that. So it's good kind of experience to have, and I guess you're getting that now as well, that feedback of how much time has it taken for me to finally feel ready to actually commit to a diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said actually something that was very good here at the beginning. You could cut, but doesn't mean that you should continue a cut, right? And that also, once again, kind of makes me reevaluate my situation, because I could definitely cut, and many things could speak for actually just continuing to cut. Like I brought up the summertime, where I normally eat less, more active outside of the gym, than the moving. But should I cut? And actually, yeah. So what's my overall goal? I want to actually be more muscular, because I hate it in musket, because I'm always thinking that I'm too small. So what's the answer? Cutting then? Probably not.
I always say, like, to clients when they want to diet and get lean, and I said it to Jess actually just recently, where we're talking about her getting lean for a photo shoot. I was like, I am very much committed and happy for us to get lean for a photo shoot, but I don't want to get any leaner than where the diet starts to really bite. Once that starts happening, we're getting below like body fat settling ranges where you feel comfortable. The diet's getting like disproportionately difficult, and it's not like productive. You're kind of getting into that fire that we've talked about before, where you're in the shit a little bit, and you need to get like in there and out and recover. So I was like, we can go as low as, so we're just on that cusp. I don't want to dig into that cusp, because that is non-productive time, because if you do get lean and you get into that, you probably have to recover out, like the process out of it. You're not going to have the most productive training. You're not going to feel your best. So better to just skim the surface of it and then get back up. So it's whether or not for me, for you, if you're at that cusp yet, and if the diet would start biting. If it wouldn't, then maybe you can go a bit deeper and then buy yourself a bit more time to mass. But if it would, then it's like, well, is the mass after that going to be that productive, or is it going to be too hard and you're going to have to rebound a little bit? Yeah, and
the question is then like, okay, is it worth because I think that I could lose like maybe 3 kilograms or so, like effectively, not just water weight or glycogen, and be at around 75 and feel all right, but not more. If I push a little bit more, then I think I will already feel it big time. And then it's just the question of like, is it worth it to actually, those 3 kilograms, will they make so much or so much of a difference? Will they buy you so much of time? Why not then have a little bit maybe of a more conservative gaining approach? And then once again, do a mini cut when you've been at a point where you recovered and been out of a caloric deficit for a longer time. And then just do a mini cut, maybe go a little bit beyond where you've been the last time. So let's just say I'm gaining up to something like, I don't know, 81 kilograms or so. In a mini cut, I could easily lose 3 kilograms, right? So I'm sitting at around 78 at the moment, just for reference purposes. So if I were to gain like 3 kilograms and strip that one off in just a mini cut, or maybe even 4 kilograms, then have I really lost something? Not really, right? I probably have gained more time than being in a caloric deficit for a little bit longer and just prolonging the time.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
I'd say come to a decision by this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation, yeah.
I know it's going to be tough for me. It won't hit me until I have to start eating the food. But I know I'm going to have to plan it, because already, like you said, like I'm already on a decent amount of food. So to eat more than that, I am going to have to think about it and plan it. So I know as soon as I start, like the first day in a surplus, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel wrong. But once you get into it, you feel so much more comfortable. I think it's like many phases. Like the first couple of weeks feel a bit, they feel a bit foreign. And then once you're in the flow of it, then it feels fine. And you just commit, and you're like, especially in a mass, it's like, okay, you lose those initial like cuts and definition you have quite quickly, because you just look a bit blurry initially from all the kind of mass bloat, I guess, the glycogen and everything, and the inflammation from training. And then you're kind of over it, and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to embrace being a bit of a cloud for a while.
I'm just wondering, for people who always have a diced upper body, and you're more so one of those, right? That it's easier for those people to commit to a gaining phase, because my upper body, it just fucking sucks. Like, I'm absolutely blatant and honest about it. I hate taking off my shirt. Also because of the loose skin and stuff, that definitely contributes to that. But I fucking hate to take my shirt off, right? And whether this makes it just so much harder to commit to something like a gaining phase, because you don't see the definitions, you don't see the muscularity that you would like to in the upper body, and maybe you're chasing just something that will never be there because you simply don't have the genetics for it. I mean, like the body fat distribution for me is primarily in my upper body. I can still see definition in my hamstrings and my quads, right? I mean, but this is not what you're looking at when you see yourself in the mirror, so to speak, right? And maybe it's because of that you get the impression that you're fatter than you actually are, and then that it makes it so much harder then to commit to something like a gaining phase. And I'm wondering whether it's easier for people who have a little bit more of a well-defined upper body, where they are holding a little bit more of that fat on the lower extremities.
I definitely think it can be, like, without a doubt. I think it's why not being, like, it's tracking as closely as possible without it being a detriment to your overall gaining phase. This is why, like, I'm not the biggest fan of weekly photo check-ins or like that sort of thing, which you might do in a cut at certain stages, because you're just not going to look any different. If anything, you're going to look a bit softer. And the fact is, once you're like intermediate going advanced, you're going to be proportionally gaining probably more fat than muscle in a gaining phase. So you're going to actually be looking softer and softer rather than more muscular and more muscular. So it just doesn't make sense to, focus on your physique too much, focus more on the performance. And it's hard to do that. And so, use all the filters, use all the half natty lighting you need to convince yourself to keep gaining.
Yeah. I probably need to build a section in our home then. That is only there for photos. Like half natty photo section.
We're waiting for all the photos coming out now over on Instagram.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know if The only other thing to update the listeners on, because I think this is where I talked about it first, is those watching can probably see a box.
The lat pull down. I just wanted to make a joke, but I didn't expect that you were actually bringing up the lat pull down machine.
I said, don't know where I said it. I said it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, which I think is such a horrible statement, isn't it? Because it's so selfish.
It is. It really is. But I said it in the past already as well, because in certain situations, that's actually good advice, especially for those people who overthink things and are too concerned of bothering other people. Katie is one of them. She always tries to make it or to please other people first instead of herself. That sounded weird. But yeah, you know what I mean, right? And in that instance, I'm just, I sometimes I'm trying to encourage her to be a little bit more selfish, even when it's regarding me. Just like, take care of yourself first, instead of worrying about me or someone else.
So I'm excited. I'm going to build it this weekend. I have my toolkit now, which I also had to order. So I feel like I'm a man with a toolkit now.
Yeah. You're probably vlogging it, right?
Yes, I do plan to. I'm not, I don't know about you, Pascal. You probably, I don't know, maybe you like it. I take after my dad here. I really don't enjoy DIY or building things, unless it's like Lego, and then maybe that's okay.
It depends. I think it has changed over the past couple of months and years. I love it on my motorbikes. There are certain things that I will probably massively enjoy building at home as well, so on the house. But there will be also things where I'm like, I can't be bothered. I have money. So that sounds also weird. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm working. And that. So basically, it's the same as what we are doing. And this is something that we brought up in the past. Everyone can learn what we know. It is just like a time investment. Basically, every occupation is time. All right? Someone sat down, studied a specific topic, maybe has worked in that field for ages now, and you are buying their time and their expertise and their knowledge. All right? And this is basically what you then can do with certain things at home as well. Either do it yourself, then you probably need to do the research. Maybe you're making some mistakes and need to then still get someone else who fixes the entire thing, or you actually manage to do it yourself. You may have saved a little bit of money, but have you also saved some time along with that? And could that time have been spent elsewhere of making actually money? And then it's kind of it balances itself out. So sometimes it's simply, in my opinion, not worth the time investment. That's why we're also getting a cleaning lady for the house. We had it here in the apartment already. She was just proper shit. That's why I fired her. I'm not kidding. And but yeah, in the house, it would end up being us like one time per week for like 2 or 3 hours and cleaning the house. And I simply don't want this.
Yeah, Charlotte's been at me for ages to get a cleaner. And I've always been like, no, that's too much money. I'm doing it. And then we just have a dirty flat.
It's never getting done, right?
Not as frequently as it should be.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same here as well. At home, I fired the cleaning lady and said to Katie, like, yeah, I'd rather do it myself once per week instead of paying her to do a fucked up fucking job. Like, and what ended up happening, I didn't do it on a weekly basis. So the one to blame is me.
Awesome. Should we get some questions now?
Yeah.
We have a good chunk of time to get through quite a few. So, as always, the first question is from our man, the veiny, vascular, Andrew Pottercheck. So, have you ever left the gym or sat down after working out thinking, I'm done. I just want to lay on the floor right now. I don't care because you pushed it hard.
Yes. Only happens on leg days, though. I don't know what it is, but it's probably also because you're still using your legs after a leg day. Anyway, right? It's not like you're walking out after an upper body day on your on your hands or arms, like handstand walk or so. But sometimes when I was riding my bicycle or the motorbike after an intense upper body day, I had a hard time actually holding onto the bicycle because my arms were just like a little bit so tired about it. And so definitely, I think I can just like leave it there and say like yes.
I think I've even not, and it's same leg day. It's like, it's just leg day. It's more tiring overall and everything. And I think even during sessions, I've had it where I'm like in the middle of squat sets and I'm just like, fuck, have I really got more to do?
Yeah. And Steve, how is that even possible? Because we are training with reps in reserve. That shouldn't be the case.
It is easy, to be honest.
Yeah, it's super easy. Yeah.
Weak.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, weak? No, that would make us really strong because we're getting tired from really easy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that doesn't work.
We shouldn't feel crippled or burned out or so. Actually, it should be a breeze to walk back home or so. Maybe we are overdoing it. Maybe we are gauging the RER wrongly, and we are actually training still too hard, and should actually reduce it a little bit more. Yeah.
But did you die? That's it.
No, and that's the problem, right? I mean,
someone had a gun to your head and you didn't die. That means you didn't push it hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. You can. That's what we just talked about in regards to investing time, right? You can actually hire someone. If you don't hire someone who puts a gun to your head, you don't want it hard enough. So get someone, take it to the next level, who's always putting a gun to your head, and who should or is supposed to pull the trigger if you don't go to failure. Otherwise, you don't want it.
I'm really concerned now, Pascal, what's going to happen. You can do that in your private at-home training.
Yeah. Now in the newspaper all across the country, like people dying in the gym, being shot by people.
Bodybuilders dying.
Streak of bodybuilders dying in the gym, being shot by some stranger. Right? So, yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
We've got William. Wait up. I'm going to check if there's any more supporters. I don't think there were. No. So I'm just going to go straight to William.
Where are all the supporters?
Don't know. Where are our fans at? So he says, planning a busy schedule, not just training, can be a bit tricky when you ramp up gym volume each week and then deload, since the time that training demands varies. Ramping up volume in the gym demands more time, so it's tricky. Can you give your thoughts on the alternative to train with fairly static volume and then deload? How ineffective would it be in a comparison? MEV up to your MAV or upper MAV, any better alternative? He said, edit, given that overall volume of the meso is the same.
I think, so the MEV or MRV concept, the volume landmarks, it is a concept. This is not meant that it's absolutely superior to everything that we've seen before. I don't think that it is a good thing for everyone. I think it's a very good concept. I very much like what Mike Sertel and also James Hoffman have laid out there. It's very much well thought out, and it's still in development. It's still getting better and better. And I think that many, if not everyone, can benefit from that. However, if that doesn't suit your lifestyle, if that doesn't suit your current needs or so, then do something else. People have gotten huge and big with just like static volume approaches, right? And this is only one way to go about things. This is not the only way to go about it. And you can even bring up the argument of like, okay, will you get to your destination with a different approach? Probably, right? Will it get you there quicker or a little bit later? Who can tell, right? And will it then make that much of a difference? I don't think that the volume landmarks will give you such a significant different outcome than a static volume approach. If it would, then I think that we were all training in that fashion, and the discrepancy and also the disagreement in the community wouldn't be present anymore. because everyone would just see that this is so much more effective. But because it isn't, because it's only a concept, it's an idea of how to get the most out of training, right? We either can follow it and trust that it actually does, or we don't and follow a different approach.
Yeah, I think you said it well in that it's a great concept. The volume landmarks make a lot of sense, but we don't have enough information to say how ineffective it would be in comparison to other things. We can't say that it's absolutely the most effective way to train. It's just one of the ways, and it makes a lot of sense and has a lot of kind of good scientific backing. But you can certainly, and people have grown with static volume for years. And would you be able to tell, like after 2 months of doing one versus the other, the difference? No, you're not going to be able to measure that. It's going to be years of doing one versus the other that you'd maybe be able to see, oh, that guy's a little bit further ahead than that other guy. So I wouldn't like overthink it too much. And I have had clients where they could recover from more and benefit from more volume. They don't have the time. So we cap. And that then maybe leads to a longer accumulation phase. So maybe they have an extra week of training in them. They don't hit their MRV as soon. They accumulate more fatigue over kind of more weeks rather than hitting that MRV sooner at a higher peak. That tends to be how it ends up for me.
I also think that some people, so it's very much individual dependent of the type of person you are. Same goes for the RER concept, right? Some people have a very hard time of actually pushing to failure. Some people don't. They always overshoot the RER and they lie to themselves, right? Like, okay, I had like 3 more repetitions in reserve, while in reality that was already absolute failure, right? And I think that the same thing applies to something like the volume landmarks. That there will be people that are just lying to themselves, that will always find ways of increasing the MRV threshold. For example, of just like making the rest times longer. By that, you are artificially increasing the MRV, but that's not your true MRV. Right? You don't have a consistent approach then. You're just like taking a longer rest time. And then in the end, you could just like artificially bump it up, but that doesn't mean that each and every single set is really that qualitative in the returns that you're getting, right? So some people will just simply overdo it, will never listen to their body, or this is something that the guys from RP are even saying with the templates. So many people are just like lying to themselves, just like ramping volume up so that they end up with something like, 40 sets per body part because of several different reasons, right? And that is not the approach to go about it. And I think that this applies so much to the volume landmarks, such as it does to relative intensity, that some people it's simply not made for, or it takes a lot of time to figure it out, to actually get a good understanding of what it is that you can get away with, what it is that you can't get away with. And yeah, for some people, it's not the way to go because they are always overdoing things and they can't, or they don't have themselves under control when it comes to adding sets or with the ARIA approach of like keeping reps in reserve or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where people try and run before they can walk, and why for us, it's super essential. And it's become more and more obvious to me that it's so essential because I used to be a bit maybe soft on it and not worry too much. Even if they are a personal trainer, I want form videos that like first week of training so I can see, because you may not be getting like the fatigue build up, the soreness, and you may be feeling fine because you're not pushing hard enough or you're not using a full range of motion, and so you're not really creating that much like muscle damage. You're not stressing through a full range of motion. So it's so important to walk before you can run, and part of walking is making sure you've got that intensity in check, whether or not you're going too hard or too easy on yourself, and then also making sure your form is the foundation and you keep that consistent. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Next question is from Joseph Kaufman, and he has asked, due to limited equipment at home, I started doing conventional deadlifts at the end of pull day. It has been fantastic. I think I increased the SFR because I use much less weight. I really feel tension throughout the lats erectors and upper back during the lift. Do you think deadlifts can grow the back very well, even though there is not really a contraction, just isometric?
In my opinion, no. When we take a look at the scientific literature on like the way the muscle grows most efficiently, it's not through static holds or so. And when people are saying, okay, I'm using a deadlift to build my back, and they are primarily speaking about the upper back or the mid back or so, sorry, but this is not the best exercise to go about it, in my opinion. I think if you really want to build your back, then do lots of variations of rowing. It has probably even a better stimulus to fatigue ratio than putting the deadlift at the end of a session on a pull day. I think that the stimulus to fatigue ratio in comparison to a couple of sets of rows is still probably shit. So I'm just wondering why you would do the deadlifts instead of just like another rowing movement, and what you're hoping to get out of it. Only because it feels good doesn't mean that it does a lot, because we also know that stretch under load, like the eccentric portion, plays a huge role in the hypertrophic adaptations. Right? And if you're just like having static holds, that would then mean like, okay, we could just load it up as heavy as we want and get the most out of it. But that's probably not what is happening. You're only adding fatigue to the entire mixture unnecessary. And once again, I don't think that's the best investment of your time, and also the best investment of your energy resources and the fatigue pool. I think that instead of doing like 1, 2, 3 sets, I don't know how many sets you're doing at the end of a pull day, just substitute it with another rowing movement and you will get so much more out of that, instead of adding that volume towards something like isometric holds coming from conventional deadlifts. Maybe I've forgotten something. Maybe I didn't think of something, and Steve can chime in here and correct me.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger members site. Inside you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description. Pascal, you're so fucking wrong. Deadlifts build big backs.
That's true. That's true.
I was
posting a picture on the story on IG, made by Deadlifts. Hashtag.
I was trying to think of something to add there, but you're right. It's dynamic contractions with eccentrics, concentrics, and stretch under load. Like, they are potent things for hypertrophy. So I was trying to find a reason why the deadlift might not be the best choice at the end of the workout apart from that, but I can't think of anything. It's not probably going to have the best SFR, especially compared to a rowing movement that does have that dynamic contraction. And I think what he's doing is maybe making, like, you could maybe make a worse choice and use the deadlift first and use that as your big back builder. Maybe doing it at the end of the session is better than doing it at the start if you're trying to use a deadlift for back. But again, why the deadlift? Why not pick a row? Because you kind of said limited equipment at home, but if you can do a barbell deadlift, you can do a barbell row. Probably slightly superior results would come through that due to the reasons Pascal said, really.
Joseph, I'm not trying to bash you, right? When I'm getting like all worked up, it's never meant in a negative way. I'm just like, whenever I'm talking, I'm just passionate, right? This is just me. This is just the way I talk. So it isn't supposed to come across like, giving you a hard time or so. Just want to elaborate that, because sometimes I saw myself once back at a recording when I was talking to Hugo, and I was just like a little bit shocked on the way I speak. And I would assume that sometimes it comes across as if I'm, I don't know, worked up, negative about something, angry, where in reality I'm just like calm as, I don't know, whatever calm, the most calm thing is.
It's cucumber, apparently.
For example, a cucumber. Exactly.
Or no, cool as a cucumber. That's the phrase. Calm as a cucumber.
Calm as a cucumber. But yeah, I don't want to give you a hard time. I just, when we are bringing these things up, the questions are very much appreciated, but also I see it like we can be honest here, and there's no benefit in actually just telling you what you want to hear, right? It doesn't help anyone, to be honest.
Next question is from Roman Galm, and he says, how do you decide about the rep range of certain exercises / muscles? Are they specific to fit exercises best, or do you try and hit every muscle in every rep range, or are there muscles you train exclusively heavy/light?
It is dependent on several different factors for me. And also here, I could be missing some, so chime in, or feel free to chime in, Steve. First and foremost, it's dependent on the muscle group I want to hit, then the exercise selection, and also, primarily those two, because the muscle group I want to hit, when it's just like the delts, I will probably not be in the low repetition ranges because of the way the delts are just built, and they are not. Also, the joints and tendons and ligaments, they can't really handle that much of heavy repetition ranges or lower repetition ranges. And primarily, then you're just like getting the aid of other muscle groups, which doesn't make sense if your aim is to actually work the delts, for example, the biceps, for example, right? Going in the repetition range of 5 to 10 repetitions doesn't really make that much sense when you are trying to build your biceps, in my opinion. So that is already then kind of dictating on the exercise selection and the repetition range. When you're then using a specific exercise for the purpose, it will then also depend on what repetition range you are then using, because when you're using something like a free weight movement, the fatigue that is then accumulated will probably be a little bit higher. And thus, I think it's better off to be on the, in quotation marks, low side of the repetition range, such as, let's just bring up the example of the biceps once again. If you're then using like a bicep curl with a barbell, I don't think that you're going all the way up to something like 20 repetitions or 30 repetitions, but it's more so reserved for maybe something like 10 or 15 repetitions. But if you also want to cover the spectrum of a higher repetition range, I think it's a great idea then to go to something like a more isolationish kind of movement, maybe machine preacher curls, maybe a cable curl or something like that, where it's easier, where the only fatiguing component isn't like also the stabilizer muscles, but more so just like the bicep flexors in it for itself. So yeah, have I forgotten something, Steve?
No, and if I was to try and add anything, I think I'd just end up repeating your answer, just saying it in a different way. So I'm not going to say anything because I would just repeat you.
Yeah. So once again, to sum it up really quickly, I always make it dependent on the muscle group I want to work, and also then the exercise I pick for that muscle group. And then, yeah, I still try to cover a wide range of reps. So primarily in the 8 to 15 in general, and then sometimes, of course, a little bit lower and sometimes a little bit higher, depending on the exercise. But the general rep range where I'm always in is like the 8 to 15 general, right? So sometimes it's a little bit outside, sometimes a little bit inside.
Yeah, essentially some muscles can't be trained, like there's rep ranges that don't make sense for certain muscle groups, and there's exercises that don't make sense for certain muscles. Exercises that don't make sense for certain rep ranges. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's more of a practical thing than necessarily anything else. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, just to once again, sorry to once again bring something up, but for example, the rhomboids. If you want to work the rhomboids and try to isolate them, right? Yes, you can work your rhomboids to a very good extent with rowing variations, but can you really just like target and feel those? Hardly ever. Right? They will hardly ever be the limiting factor. So you want to do additional work with something like reverse flies, for example, maybe on a machine, maybe with dumbbells or so, to really just like make that muscle group the limiting factor. And that, in my opinion, at least from my experience, can only be accomplished with higher repetition ranges and also movements that really just target that muscle group, because otherwise other muscle groups will take over and they become the limiting factor instead of those muscle groups.
Yeah. Cool. And the next question is from Darko Stankovic. And he has asked, do you think protein requirements varied by higher range by daily basis for advanced athletes because of slightly limited MPS duration due to harder, lighter training, overreaching or not, body part, amount of muscle due to muscle damage?
I have a very hard time understanding the question. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Darko.
do you think protein requirements vary for advanced athletes by their training?
Yeah.
Would you ever change protein intake because of?
I think this
training,
is something that falls very much in the belief of someone like Broderick Chavez when he brings up like steroid usage. Because so many people are under the impression that when you're taking steroids, you need a higher protein intake because you can make more use of that one. However, your muscle protein breakdown and muscle protein synthesis ratio is now in favor of muscle protein synthesis, and thus you actually need, in theory, less protein for muscles to be built. So I think that perhaps it may be the same for more advanced trainees, but just like a marginal thing where then it doesn't really make any kind of difference whether you are then like eating 180 or 170 grams. I think that doesn't really make that much of a difference. But my theory is that because you have a more muscle mass to play with, of course, depending now on the split, because this is something that we can talk or touch on in just a couple of seconds, but because you have more muscle mass to play with, but at the same time, you can't really accrue that much more muscle tissue, I don't think that the requirements are so different to people who are more beginners or so, because you can always make the argument like beginners can build a lot of muscle mass in the first initial years or month. Thus, the protein requirements would actually need to be sufficient for positive muscle protein synthesis because they have that basically high requirement because they can build so much more muscle. On the contrary, those who can't really put on that much muscle mass, they don't need as much, but they already have a lot of muscle tissue. So I think in the end, it will probably be the same or balance itself out because on the one hand, you have already a lot of muscle tissue that needs to be preserved, but you can only add a little bit. The beginner can add a lot of muscle mass, has a little bit of muscle mass that needs to be preserved. So basically, it will probably be somewhere in the same ballpark. What do you think, Steve?
So yeah, it's interesting that this got asked because I recently had a chat with a client about protein intakes and what the requirements were, and I think there is just the kind of evidence-based recommendation in general is the rule of thumb of 1 gram per pound or 2 grams per kilo, or 2.2 grams per kilo. That's the equates, I think. Yeah, 2.205 is like the multiple. So yeah, I think the things you said there are very interesting. I think it's also interesting to see, I know like there was the studies done on having more protein after a full body training session seemed to be more beneficial. So it's kind of like, I don't know, that's because more muscle protein breakdown because you're training the whole body. So maybe if you're more muscular, you're getting more muscle protein breakdown, or if you're doing higher volume training, you're getting more muscle protein breakdown. So you could benefit from more. I think for myself, practically, I don't change protein intakes. I kind of have them at a set level. And I would say if I did anything, I'd generally overestimate protein intake for people. I always tend to give them a little bit more than maybe what the evidence suggests, just from people tend to prefer that from an adherence standpoint. There's very small amounts of, I always think if I'm going to do anything, I'd go a little bit above than a little bit below, just from what protein and the role, muscle growth, it's the most important macronutrient for that. But there was, and I wonder if he's referring to, because when I did my bit of research into it, I was obviously looking at the muscle and strength pyramids, just recapping what they were saying over in there, and then also RP Diet 2.0, because they've looked at all the research and then they've come to like a general conclusion. And then there is also the kind of idea within when you're cutting, muscle protein breakdown is higher. So protein intake requirements, you generally have a bit more when you are dieting, which is interesting. So whether or not the degree of muscle damage from high volume training in like a surplus, or even when you're in a deficit, requires even more, I'm not sure. But there was an interesting study, as the one I was going to come to, which I need to fully read over, which was from Brad Schoenfeld and some others, should competitive bodybuilders ingest more protein than current evidence-based recommendations? And they concluded, just to read the conclusion, people can look this up, there's a free PDF that they can find online. They said, we conclude that competitive bodybuilders may benefit from consuming a higher protein intake than what's generally prescribed for recreationally trained lifters. However, the paucity of direct research in this population makes it difficult to draw conclusions on the topic. So, and it's interesting that people like Cliff Wilson, they like higher protein intakes, particularly in off seasons, and they've seen a lot of benefit from that. And there's no real direct evidence to suggest it. So if I was thinking in regard to his question, if anything, I would just have maybe a slightly higher protein intake generally, and I just wouldn't try and play around modifying it all the time too much, because I'm just not a big fan of that. I like keeping things kind of slow, steady, so that people can just get into a nice flow state and not have to worry about changing variables all the time, and that just breeds consistency. But basically, we need more evidence to come out, but there is some definitely ideas and food for thought on that topic.
I think because some people are splitting hairs when it comes to the protein intake, and I think it has gotten better. Like 1 or 2 years ago, there has been a massive discussion around like protein intake, because someone like Mano Hanselmans, I think it was Mano, correct me if I'm wrong, who always then said like, okay, this is what we actually need. We don't need to go above that. Yeah. And then there were some other people saying like, okay, I recommend like 2.3 grams up to 2.7 grams per kg, or even something up to 3 grams. And I think for me personally, I just automatically and naturally eat a lot of protein. This is my personal preference. This is what I like. And this has not to do with me then trying to actually optimize muscle protein synthesis or anything that way. The thing is, though, that I find that when you are serious about bodybuilding and you're not eating a lot of protein, and that shouldn't sound, or it's not supposed to sound like bros, I'm just questioning your approach to nutrition. Like, what is it that you're eating? In my opinion, getting to your protein intake is not hard. Actually keeping it low, at least for me, and I could be absolutely biased here of the way I eat, but I have a very hard time actually keeping it low. And this also comes from when you are eating relatively clean, then it shouldn't be an issue of actually getting to your protein intake. I don't know whether people are concerned about it, of exceeding a certain protein intake, and so far the evidence hasn't shown that it is detrimental in any kind of way or has negative effects on your overall health. So in my opinion, right now, nothing speaks against actually having a high intake. However, a lot speaks against having a too low of an intake. So why not actually eat some more protein? So many people are then once again splitting hairs about like, okay, what's the minimum intake? But why do we need to know the minimum intake? Why is it important? Right? I mean, you know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I was only thinking the only time I would be concerned is if someone's prioritizing or eating so much protein that they've down prioritized their fat and carbs so that they're not getting sufficient amounts of those. But it's very easy to get sufficient amount of those. And yeah, it's only then, maybe you could argue if I had a bit less protein, then I could put more carbs in, and that goes to like the higher carb hypothesis and all that. But again, that's a hypothesis that isn't kind of set in stone. It's not huge differences. And we're not talking about crazy amounts of protein here.
No,
we're talking about like just above 1 gram per pound.
Yeah, and I just want to make it clear that I'm not talking about on an individual basis. There are always exceptions to the rules. Right? Always. You can always make the argument for a lower protein intake. Let's just say someone who is in a contest prep, right? who is very low on calories already. And the only way to actually furthermore reduce the calories is to slash the proteins, because otherwise you don't have any kind of carbs left and the fats are essential for you. So of course you're taking something away from the protein. I'm not talking about these kind of scenarios or people just like going balls to the wall and just having all of their nutritional intake coming from protein. And I'm also not talking about general population who is needing to be aware of that because they have kidney issues or something like that. I'm talking about the general lifter who is interested in optimizing his physique. So I don't know why there needs to be a discussion about a minimum intake. Do you really want to just eat the bare minimum of protein intake? Or do you want to just be on the safe side and add a little bit more to it? I've never seen in many ways, I've never seen the rationale of doing the bare minimum, at least in that instance, right?
It reminds me of the people who are like, I don't know, it just reminds me of like nutrient timing doesn't matter. Like that was a thing for a while, or like the post-workout window doesn't exist. You don't need your post-workout protein shake. It's like, well, actually, when you look into it a bit further, there might be a slight chance that that is beneficial, and it's certainly not a cost, and a lot of people enjoy it. So why wouldn't you kind of maybe do that? And if you're really committed, like you said, as a bodybuilder, and you are looking for like easy wins, especially like that, why, like people sometimes look, I don't know, they go against the grain in a way, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and it is kind of contrary to the things that many people are striving for. So many people, their priority is actually to improve their body composition, right? So why on earth would you go for the minimum intake? If your goal is actually to maximize everything for the minimum, because if you're going for the minimum and we don't know for 100% certainty that this is definitely the minimum, like the bare minimum, right? Then you are always risking something. So why not do a little bit more, right? So for example, when you are, let's just see it as a bank account, right? And you know, all right, certain times I need to spend this amount of money. Do you always just want to save right about that much amount of money? No, you're saving a little bit more because there may come some unexpected expenses as well. And just for the sake of safety, you're saving a little bit more money. Because otherwise, if you're not saving that additional bit, it could actually put you in a very compromised situation and can make things much worse, right? And if not, you haven't lost anything. You have actually more money to spend then. And the same goes for protein intake, right? You are not losing anything and actually having a little bit of higher intake, but you can lose something if you are too low on protein. So I've never understood that discussion of like a minimum protein intake. Yes, it is valuable to know maybe, but when it comes to the practical application, do we really need to have a discussion around that when it comes to practical application for a bodybuilder, for someone who wants to optimize his physique? I've never seen the rationale for it. In our other areas, like medical application and stuff like that, yeah, sure, absolutely. But not as a bodybuilder or a physique athlete or so. But that's just my take. Once again, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. And don't give me some flag in the comments section for things I didn't say or did say. We're only humans, right? And sometimes we're saying shit as well. So,
all I've got to say is fat's the shit, mate. All the fats.
Well,
I'm maximizing fat intake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am actually getting very into my nut butters recently. I think it's because I'm in my primer, so I let my fats come up quite high. I'm just like, oh, nut butters, they're legit. They're good.
Yeah, it is.
Typically would not really eat many. So, next question is from
Last one.
Oh, wait, have we got time?
Well, we are over an hour already.
I'm just in my typical podcasting mode, and I feel like I'm interviewing you at the moment. So I'm just like rolling through questions.
Did I talk so much already?
No, I don't know. This is quite a long question, so we'll save that one for next time,
Cool.
Addy. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Take care.
Yeah.
Stay strong. Stay safe. And hopefully next time we talk to you, more people will be back in gyms.
Absolutely. Let's hope for
But
the
safely.
best. Cheers, guys.
See you guys. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.